Okay. Just beeped at me. Why? Why are you angry at me? I don't want to be... Okay. It's fine. It's whatever. It is fine. I can hear myself. I can hear... Whatever it beeped at me, I don't care. Okay. I have a long day. I've been working since I got up. Which was about 9 hours ago. I had to go shopping. And that, usual morning of getting Granny up and out of bed and all that. Go shopping, came home, started cutting up stuff to make dinner, and now I have finished eating dinner, and I am moving right along to streaming. Hi, folks. Thankfully, this is a little more relaxing than anything else that I could be doing at the moment. Because it's at least a break from dealing with Granny. I also really wanted to talk about Dr. Stone, because this one's ongoing. It's quite good. I don't have a final rating for it, but right now it is high B with the potential to be probably a high A. A lot comes down to how this ending goes. It's like the series is coming right to an end soon, hopefully. And so a lot's going to come down to, how does it end this journey. But the basic loop is just fun. Like, it's just got a very fun loop. It's a very science heavy story. The basis of the story is that the world gets petrified instantaneously, quote unquote instantaneously. And 3,700 years... Well, every human gets petrified. And 3,700 years later, a few people start to break free of that petrification. And we follow the main character. I should know his name, but I'm probably blanking because I am probably completely physically exhausted. So let me go ahead and give myself a little bit of an aid and get the Wikipedia up, because I'm going to need some reminders. Senku. Some name reminders. My brain is officially on fumes for today. Again, I'm really, really tired. So the specific names are going to fade from my mind every now and then, because it's got a pretty big cast, but also I'm just extremely exhausted, considering that I couldn't immediately even draw the main character's name, and that's a character that I know I spotted it in the blank text, in the wall of text that came up with the Google search result, and I was like, oh, there it is. Did I mention I'm tired? So I got a Wikipedia up now, so that'll help me get some of these names correct. So we follow Senku, and this is what the people of this world are a little bit ridiculous, and we just kind of have to accept it, which is fine. It's fun and interesting enough, despite So Senku is very smart. I contend that at some point as a child he consumed a Wikipedia in order to gain its powers, like Futurama style, Hermes eating a calculator to gain its powers. He that level of he's eaten this Wikipedia. It is in his body, and he has gained its powers. He knows every fact there is to know about science. And he just draws it directly. So during the petrification, the people that could come out through the use of nitric acid, which is something that does appear in nature, are only the people who could keep their minds active the entire time. And for Senku, that was him and one other person for Senku's group. And for Senku, that was he counted every second And that's how he knows that it was 3,700 years of petrification, is that he counted. So, like, that's the level of kind of silly ridiculous the characters are capable of having. His initial companion, because this is a character that kind of fades in and out. Taiju is just an endurance beast. There's literally nothing he can't just barrel his way through. And he's going around plowing fields in seconds because he's just a beast. And like it works for what the series is trying to talk about, which is like science. It when it comes to the construction and the progression, because Senku's goal is to get everything back, is to take us from this Stone Age back to modern civilization. And so he is very explicitly laying out foundations and fundamentals, talking about the big scientific achievements that have allowed for certain things to happen. They explain things like pistons and how, water wheels work and how power generation works and how we actually get energy out of substances. It's got a lot of good details, and almost every single chapter is about either locating, processing, or dealing with one of these resources or building something. And like all the time, and one of the cool things is that the series takes big advantage of recent scientific advancement. So an interesting thing to note on the tail end of this series, because this is what the series is based off of, for the last 20-ish years, a lot of modern science has been focused on cheaper, more renewable resources. Basically, we already kind of know that things like gold is a great conductor, platinum is an incredible material that's very flexible. Oil and gas and coal, like these are things that are very, very handy to have around. But we've also figured out we're kind of running out of all of it. These are limited resources. Once they're out of the ground and used up, that's it. We're done. So a lot of recent science has been trying to figure out how to do things like make plastics without relying on oil and petroleum in particular to make plastics. How to make sturdy armor with cheap materials, which is where the paper plastic comes from. Creating a rather sturdy material that like legitimately sturdy material that is used on planes now and whatnot. Like this is some very, very powerful stuff that's very easy to come about, because you can actually create natural plastics. It's one of the things that they're talking about. Everything that they are doing is focusing on specific things that actually exist, right up to and including like creating diamonds and other such tech. And they are taking advantage of the fact that science has recently started looking for cheaper alternatives, easier alternatives to some materials that are not as easily renewable. And it works. It works very well. It's very interesting. Some of this, and it's fun. Like, of course, there's this ongoing bit with, it's fun for him to declare really early on. What was the very first like big thing that he wanted? to make. He wanted to make an antibiotic, penicillin, early, and like that's a huge task to do when you don't have things like labs and factories and transport. And he made it. They had to make things like a water wheel engine that looks wonky as hell and is made out of wood and but like they're using the resources they have around, and Japan is not a hugely resource intensive nation, unfortunately for them. It's very, very clever. It's very clever. Like they did a cell phone very early, and what it really was a two-way radio, more or less. It wasn't a cell phone. It was a cell phone in that like the person who had the phone was wearing a backpack. That was the size of them. In order to transmit information, but like that's it was a transceiver, which is great. And they explained every bit of the pieces. When they did eventually finally get to some of the video technology, broadcasting technology, stuff like that, they go into a lot of detail on how these computers work and how these computations are made and all of this other stuff. It's really well done, and it's just fun. It's fun. Like, it's fun. Science is fun. Knowing how things are made and how they build off of each other and what are the dangers and what are the cool things. It's fun. Add on to that, the plots are decent. They actually get into a little bit of depth with various ideologies, especially with this kind of return to zero, where you have different people, ideologies popping up of, if we're going to remake the world, shouldn't we try and remake it better? And I think the implicit thing that Senku brings up, and I think the implicit message of the story, is that we got to where we are today, built on the same set of ideologies of let's change the world, dating back years and years and years and years and years into our past. These ideas have existed as long as society has, and our society still ended up where it is today. The fact of the matter is that removing people, which is generally what most of the other ideologies was talking about, was removing people, isn't gonna help. Really what needs to happen is a systemic change, is something that's a little bit more practical and focused on changing the system rather than removing people, because I'm still very much of the opinion that where the few places where assassinating people can be helpful are very rare. In most cases, you're just leaving a power vacuum that someone else is going to fill. Because the system is the way it is. And the system is what needs to be fixed. It's not the people in the system. The people are just people. Some of them are going to be bastards, but, the people are the people. So there's, like, 3 major arcs. Dealing with 3 ideologies. We're on the final one now. We're dealing with the person. Like, the story is, of course, wrapping up with the person who petrified the world, which has been the big mystery. And, by the way, with these post-apocalyptic rebuilding kind of stories. Which Dr. Stone is very much kind of a post-apocalyptic story. Mystery story. I've seen a few of these around, small group of survivors trying to hash it out in a very hostile environment. Um, these always run up to the problem of the mystery. A lot of times they have to really reach for a mystery to make the scenario interesting. And then, of course, because it's a mystery, they want it to be based on some form of logic. Well, unfortunately, fantasy and logic don't necessarily work well together. They can, if you're careful. But it's kind of like mixing oil and water. They really just don't want to mix. And so you have to be you have to pay a lot of attention to make sure that there is an actual mixture going on that works. And I do mean that in a very sincere way. One of the best ways to get the logic part to work out is to make the fantasy part occur throughout. So we see this a lot in fantasy series, like, say, One Piece, where the fantasy elements of the world itself and the fruit powers is something that's used throughout the series, and has an internal consistency, which means that logic can be applied to it. Stories like Dr. Stone and similarly Garden of Eden, where the basis is in modern reality, quote unquote, run aground, and 20th Century Boys actually is also kind of in the same model of, modern mystery, modern deep mystery of, like, not like a murder mystery, whodunit, but like the world is a different place whodunit. And how. These stories run afoul, oftentimes, of the fantasy elements. And Dr. Stone has done a decent job merging the fantasy device, the fantasy petrification device, in with how the world worked, how this whole world thing is working. But it's not entirely out of the woods yet. This is part of the reason why I'm still waiting on Final Judgment for when the series actually ends. So I'm going to go ahead and, because I am starting to move towards spoiler content, I am going to go ahead and give the final pitch for this. I'd suggest, honestly, the first arc goes very quickly. The story picks up very, very fast. If you're into the main loop of Dr. Stone, which is basically each chapter there's a resource or an item that they're crafting, and you get to see them do things around getting the resource and learn a bit about how that item is made. If you get into that loop, it starts very early, and it's a lot of fun, and it makes the series very, very entertaining very quickly. If you get into that loop, just keep going. The whole series is like that. With very few exceptions, the whole series is like that. It is just pure fun. I really do think that it's just a good series. Really, I'm only withholding judgment because I don't know how it ends yet. The ending hasn't come out. So, and the ending is always a big sink or swim thing for stories. It just is, unfortunately. Like, that's, how it works. But, yeah, so I'd say pitch. Even watching the show, like, this is one I've watched. I haven't watched the whole show yet, but I've watched enough to realize it's a completely faithful um, rendition of the story. 100% faithful, good animation, good music. Like, it's gonna just be the same as the manga. It's just lagging behind, which, great. They're also doing the realistic seasonal thing of 25 episode seasons. oh, I still hurt from my long day. I've been having pain here all day. Actually, it started last night, but, I did not expect it to continue into today. But yeah, no, watch the show if you prefer the show, if you prefer TV, if you prefer it on the TV. Read the manga. Either one, just get 5 to 10 chapters in or 5 episodes in before you make a judgment call. It's pretty upfront about what it is and what it wants to do. So I've been enjoying it. I highly recommend anybody who's looking for some good, science fantasy, go for it. It's just good. It's good. The characters are good. Senku's a fun character. Taiju's a fun character. There's good emotion. There's good theming. The plot's pretty good for the most part. It's running on 3 solid. The 3 main pillars are very solid. It's a solid story. The ending, there's some plot chips in there, that are big enough for me to have some concerns, and I'll get into that in spoiler territory. There's also, it is Japan, and so the women aren't necessarily treated the best. They're not treated the worst. But it's Japan. The girls are all cute, so if you're into fan service, I'm not necessarily personally opposed to fan service. But I know there's a lot of people who are, so there's fan service. Quite a bit. It's a shame. But it's not as bad as ecchi gets for Japan. On in terms of standard Japanese fan service, it's on the lower end. I mean, I haven't seen the whole anime, and the anime may do some more boob physics work, but the manga was pretty tame. Comparative. There were some good jokes. Some of the female cast, like Kohaku, are genuinely funny and good characters. So I'm going to go ahead and use that note to move on to the spoiler portion of the review. If you wish to read or catch up to this story, please leave now, stop watching, go somewhere else. I'm talking spoilers. Just, fair warning. So my biggest gripe is with the portion right at the end of the second arc where they're dealing with this other group that was unpetrified in the United States, and they're doing a race to the Amazon rainforest, and they get there, and there's a conflict, and everybody gets shot. So that entire point in time, once they start getting shot and dying in mass, is alright, this is one of those things that I have a problem with in stories. When you have a bunch of named characters, a large cast of named characters, and you start attempting to kill a lot of them off in quick succession, you are reducing the impact of death. each time you do it. By a lot. The first time's a shock. The second time is a tragedy. By the third time, it's not bueno anymore. It's reached, okay, you're just being an asshole. The writer is being an asshole. And when you start wiping out the whole cast, it's like, why am I supposed to even care? This has to be a fake out. The emotions stop landing because they're all crying and upset that everyone's, sacrificing themselves to save everyone else. And it's like, well, you can't all die. The series will end. And the series hasn't ended yet. I can see the page count. Maybe this worked week to week. But, even then, I'm sure a message would have been put out that, hey, something different is taking this slot next week. And this is how it ends. Which, on top of that, it goes against the tone of the entire rest of the story. So you're not fooling anyone, and you're basically attempting to con an emotional reaction out of people. It's just not a good look. It's not a good look. Flow within the rivers of your story type. You have this good flow going. Stick with it. Because, of course, they all petrify. And, they just repetrify the whole world for 7 years. And, or 10 years or something like that. And the little girl... I am going to look up her name. I know her name. I need a reminder. Why isn't it right up on the top of Suika is the one that's left behind to unpetrify everyone else. She's this very small child left with the task of finding a way to create nitric acid, which is the cure for the petrification. And she takes 7 years to do it, and it turns into an excuse to give her some extra trauma, because why not? And to age her up so that she's the same age as the rest of the cast. Which is annoying to me. Very annoying to me. I do not like these little kind of cheat arounds. Having her be the one left behind works fine. Having her solve the problem works fine. Having her take 7 years as a small child alone is just being an asshole for the purposes of being an asshole. It doesn't serve the story, is the thing. It's it's being an emotional beat. It's a heavy emotional beat that is there to be a heavy emotional beat. You're not adding anything to the story. They're tying up the loose end of explaining the third method of making nitric acid. But, we could guess. Or look it up, or Google it, or find a different way to bring that one around. It's a plot point that didn't necessarily need to be there and could have been done better. Because it's a lot of emotion that doesn't serve the story in really any substantial way. Yes, Suika now is a junior scientist after that point, but we already have multiple scientists working, and she didn't necessarily need to go through all of that to become a junior scientist. She was already kind of doing that anyway. So it's just... I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not plot devastating. The rest of the plot is fine. The rest of the plot goes just fine. But like it is a major crack that I don't like. I also am not a big fan of how much faster things start to go after they leave the main island. Like things start to speed up a lot, and we don't get as much detail and as much depth. They're jumping around the world a lot. They're doing this this travel. It feels like the author has run out of ideas and they're just moving towards the end, which isn't terrible. It would certainly be worse if they were putting in padding, but it does suggest that maybe some more work or planning needed to go into this to make sure that pacing was appropriate. But that one's a more minor quibble. It's still fun and entertaining regardless. And those are like my primary complaints. I don't really have too much of a complaint with the main cast, other than like past a certain point it becomes a bunch of talking faces on top of a bunch of information. Just, there's such a huge cast of characters that I feel like a lot of times I'm just reading Reddit comments because there's just a little chibi face attached to the dialogue box of whoever's talking, and then the image is of whatever was being worked on or made, or pretty images of space now that they're out in space. Which is kind of painful when the cast has been so vibrant and recognizable for so long that they're slowly kind of being minimized down to data points and just kind of pushed out. And I mean, the series is wrapping up, and the big final project was, of course, the fucking spaceship, which, like, yeah, that's going to be difficult. It's literal rocket science. But it does weigh down a series that has been doing so well with having such a vibrant and alive cast of characters. And I feel bad about that. But other than that, like, there's not much I can spoil, because like the plot is fairly simplistic. They all wake up. These two wake up. Senku figures out the right combination for nitrile that allows people who have remained asleep the entire time to wake up, and then starts waking people up. They wake up this one guy, who is their main combat. I think it's like Tsukasa. I was close. Tsukasa. I was very, very close. I'm very, very tired. Tsukasa, who immediately has a bone to pick with the elders of society. He talks very, very vibrantly about hating the old world and hating the greed of the older people, and he only wants to revive the young people and start over. And his ability to fight is such that there's not much that any of the others can do to stop him, at least not without technology. So Senku flees to find a way to make a gun, which would solve this particular situation. Has a near-death thing where Tsukasa kills him. Comes back to life, in part, faking his death in order to get out from Tsukasa's eyes. Goes to find a village that they had basically spotted some signal flares while they were making the gunpowder. Something exploded, and then someone lit a fire in the forest, seeing the fire on the mountainside. And they started sending some more signal flares, so they figured there was someone else out there, and Senku goes to find them, finds a village, and starts trying to take over the village because he needs people. And so, like, a slow, steady progression begins. He leaves the other two, Taiju and the other girl. Oh man, no! Don't give me a name that's this complicated. Yuzuriha. They leave those two. He leaves those two to go join Tsukasa as spies, more or less. And to propagate the idea that Senku's actually dead, so that Tsukasa doesn't go looking for Senku. Giving Senku time to get a gun. Which he doesn't get. He builds a tank, though. Before, like, gets to the tank before the gun. I don't understand sometimes this series. Of course, Tsukasa does find out. Fighting starts to break out. But now, Senku has a village backing him. In part because he found a cure for the tuberculosis that the head priestess had, which helps when you cure someone from something that they were pretty sure they were going to die young from. That helps a lot. It's a little bit more ridiculous than that, but again, I'm kind of just leaving some stuff out because it's not super important, and there's a lot of fun to be had just reading it. So even if I just do that by habit. He goes to war. He conquers that other. He wins against Tsukasa. There's some weird stuff that happens near the end, some betrayals and whatnot. It's all good. It's well written. It's well written drama. And then with Tsukasa in a deep freeze and his empire down, Senku goes out to try and find the crash landing of a spaceship, where a landing pod dropped from the International Space Station. So when the petrification happened, there were some people in space, in the space station, who saw the whole thing and came down afterwards, and they are the ones that created that village by propagating. But they didn't land on Japan. They landed on an island off the coast, and people had gone voyaging out over the sea to try and find the land that was out there, and it's presumed that the villagers are descendants of those that landed. Long after having... What's in my glass? Oh, it's on the bottom of my glass. And that's, why there's some people spreading out now, though not many. But that island in particular is ruled by a dictator. Huzzah! We've got a dictator. Oh, this is the second arc. There's actually 4 arcs. Right, the America thing is the third arc. God, they run into this dictator. They have to and this dictator has one of these petrification devices. One of the things that froze the whole planet. And apparently it works by giving it a radius and a time limit. Like, you tell it how much time before it activates and how far it's supposed to flash when it activates. And that's how these things work. And once they get a hold of one of these over their little radio, someone starts beaming a message with the radius of Earth and a time limit of 1 second to try and activate the device, if possible, to refreeze the planet. Which is, where we're the problem that we're about to go face. So they get they get this petrification device, and they come back to start building a ship that can really travel across the Pacific Ocean. They want to get across the Pacific. They unfreeze a few more people. Things start to get a little bit... This is where things start to speed up very quickly. Just because there's a lot more people available. There's 2 villages now. Things are just going. And that kicks off the third arc, which is against... Dear Lord, how do I not remember? His name is so stupidly evil and easy, or... Where is it? It's not on here. What is this? What the heck? Zeno. Yeah, Zeno. God damn it. It's just like the names have all bled out of my brain because I've been working for too long today. Zeno, who, because of Senku studying these petrified sparrows that had been showing up ahead of time, which is presumed to be an initial test of the weapon, Senku and his mentor Zeno had been discussing and came up with the understanding that, like, of a kind of what this thing could do, what this weapon could do, before the petrification happened. So Zeno was able to tell his people to make sure you keep conscious the entire time, so when nitric acid became available, he was able to revive a large number of people without understanding that nitrile, without ever needing to figure out that nitrile could, in fact, unpetrify people, something that Senku immediately started on at the beginning. So they come into conflict because Zeno is of this opinion that he can just run the world. He's smart enough, he's tired of a bunch of stupid people making stupid mistakes, and he's just going to run the world his way. And that's the third major conflict. They capture Zeno and run with him to South America while his partner, Stanley, chases them. And Stanley's the one who eventually finds them in the Amazonian base after they found this giant pile of petrification devices that is presumably what froze the planet all that time ago. They're all burned out and toasted. Like, just all of them are empty. Not a single spark left. And this is where, like, Stanley catches up eventually with them at their own little fort and massacres all of them, and they use the one working petrification device to refreeze the whole... They literally place it up against a radio, and the radio is broadcasting that message and refreezes the whole planet again. Yeah, it's a little dumb. Like, that part I dislike. But after that, they get defroze and then just, like, completely de-petrify everyone again and just start moving at an incredible pace around the planet, just picking up various things from various places, and introducing a few new characters to get things settled, and get the plot wrapped up so that they can start working on this spaceship. They, of course, unpetrify Dr. Zeno, because this is an anime, like, this is manga, Shonen Jump. Once you beat the villain, they join you. That's just how it goes. And they pick 3 people to go up into space: is Senku, Stanley, and Kohaku. And then the last chapter, the previous chapter, had Ryusei join them as well. Ryusei being this ship captain, this very wealthy ship captain, who they unfroze at the end of the first arc because they needed someone who could pilot a boat. And Ryusei started off being very, very abrasive towards me. For me, I did not like him at first, but he has grown on me quite a bit. He's a bit of an idiot, though. And so this is where we're at. It's, the plot's fine. The themes are very much focused on, this is what science has done for the world. This is the good and the bad that science can do. We can achieve great things. We just have to understand and respect it. Like, those themes are great, especially for the time period that we're living in right now. Especially for the conflicts that are going on right now with so many people turning against science and rejecting logic and intelligence and rationalism in exchange for lies and violence and hatred. This is just a very good type of story for this time period. It probably won't reach the people that really need to hear it, but those people have already decided that they don't want to hear anything that they don't want to hear, and that's going to be the end of that story. They will stab you if you try to make them listen, which makes it very difficult to make them listen, unfortunately. But I'm going to go ahead and do the rare thing, because this is one of those that is ongoing, and move right along to predictions, because I do have predictions. I will not do predictions most of the time because I'm not an idiot. I will not try to predict things that are unpredictable. But we have a few things up in the air. The mystery of who done it. I don't think we're getting any more information on the how. I think the petrification devices have been discussed as thoroughly as they're going to be discussed. We have of course, the climax is coming. So the climax means there's usually 3 steps to a climax. Some form of political death that occurred to trigger the opportunity for the villain to do what they did. Some form of betrayal that is going to betray the heroes, and some form of sacrifice at the end of the story. Something has to be given up for the heroes to win. These are just standards. These are industry standards. So with those 4 things in mind, I've never, ever, ever, ever tried to predict the sacrifice. I think it's a fool's bargain to try and predict what the author is going to decide needs to be sacrificed, because I think the author very rarely knows what the sacrifice is going to be up until the moment that he starts writing the climax. So I think it's a fool's bargain. Unless there has been heavy foreshadowing, that someone's gonna die, I refrain from predicting what the sacrifice is going to be. I just absolutely refrain from predicting it. It's just a fool's bet every single time. I have a prediction for the main mystery, the whodunit. I actually have several predictions. and I have a prediction for the betrayal. I do not have a prediction for the political death. My personal, starting from that one, because that's the one that I have the least to talk about, my main assumption is that it's going to be revealed flashback wise. It's going to be something that happened pre the initial petrification. There's just no political force available anymore. There's no real politician anymore to die, so it's going to probably have to be a flashback, and it's probably going to have to be someone we don't know and don't care about. That's just my assumption. Betrayal is pretty easy here. There's 4 people going up onto the moon, which means that the 80% bet is Stanley, who's already does not like them, who was the most recent villain. I say there's a 20% bet that it's I would say there's like a 19% bet that it's Ryusei, and a 1% bet that it's Kohaku. I think that the safe bet is Stanley, though thinking about it, because it is such a safe bet, there is a chance that the writer is going to attempt the old red herring and have it be one of the other 3. But, like, Senku's the main character, and it would be ballsy as fuck. I mean, I'd have mad respect if they went for the Senku betrayal route. That would give me, that would be a high respect. Just for the balls. Just for the honking balls to have Senku be the one to do the betrayal. Kohaku would be kind of out of the blue. It would be really convoluted for it to be Kohaku. Ryusei I could see. He's a greedy bastard. It's not incredibly difficult to assume that Ryusei might be it. But like Stanley's just such the clear person, like the clear choice. So, and you know, like part of it is because like Stanley is such a clear choice. Now, there's also the chance that there's a betrayal happening on the ground, in which case there's too many characters. Like, if it's going to come from the ground, it would have to be Zeno, I think, but because he's just the most visible one who would have reason to do it. But that's, like, on the betrayal side, the safe bet, the money bet is Stanley. Stanley's going to betray them. That's just, like, part of any good climax. You have to have it happen. The whodunit. So, because of how limited the series has been, because it's been, you know, petrified, and then every character we've been introduced to has been unpetrified. Almost every character has been unpetrified by the main cast. We are talking about a very limited subset of characters, of possibilities. So that means that there are a grand total of 4 options here. Coming in at 4th, and the one that would break the series if they decide to go that route, random person. It's not used nowadays almost at all. Most writers have understood that if you have your villain be a random person that no one's ever heard of, that's bad writing. That's just pure bad writing. It's just bad. Nobody likes it. It's not good. It's just not good writing. You've gotta introduce your villain. The villain has to come from the cast. Which ties almost even with option number 3, Alien's done it, which is pretty much as bad as fucking random person. Because again, like, there's been no hint of aliens aside from the petrification device. So, those are basically the same option. There's just a minor difference between the two, and I do not want to be caught on semantics here. Second place, and still not a great option, is the moon done it. Now, I'm going to explain here, because a lot of people might be scratching their head when I say the moon done it. There are a lot of mythologies in Japan that surround the moon. And many of them are under the impression that the moon is some sort of evil thing. If I were to put it another way, if it was a certainty that at some points one civilization on this earth was going to blow up the moon, I would say 99% chance it was Japan. They fucking hate the moon. There are so, and I mean, like, I kind of say that in jest, but there is an incredible number of mythologies surrounding the moon in Japanese myth that all, like, painted in quite a dark light. So when it comes to these kinds of stories and it's coming out of Japan, you can never fully count the moon out as the ultimate villain. You just can't count it out. You cannot count it out of the running. If things are even slightly mythical, and especially if you're going to the moon, you can't count the moon out of this one. It's Japan. They don't like the moon. You just kind of have to accept that is a potential option and a potential way that this might go. You just can't knock that out of the running. But the most likely contender, the one that is probably up there, is Senku's father. I think that is like the 80%, 90% chance whodunit. And I say that because the astronaut, Senku's made explicit remarks every time Senku's father was mentioned as the guy who went up to the space station and came back down after the petrification and started the villages with a bunch of others. Senku was very explicit that father wasn't his biological father. It's come up twice. He's been very explicit twice, like made a very firm point to say he isn't my father. He isn't my biological father. The biological father is the only character that hasn't been introduced or talked about otherwise. It's the only character named and known in the series. Well, not named, but known to exist in the series that hasn't shown up yet. This is the unfortunate reality of doing a post-apocalypse story that, spans 3,000 years. Everyone's dead. Like, they're a statue. They're every person is a statue. So the only characters are the characters that have been unpetrified. So we have a full accounting of every character. And this is a character that has to have existed before the petrification happened and hasn't been on the planet since. That leaves one option. Just, one option. If we're going to take from the actual series itself, there is only one option, and that is Senku's father. And, interestingly enough, the story is already set up to really support this choice. I think the general fandom's idea is that it's some form of AI, and I think that's a safe bet. I think that there's a lot of safe bet that this might be an AI that Senku's father downloaded his brain into, and his mind is just operating this device on the moon that has whatever is needed. I will go one step further and say that it might actually be Senku's father because of technology for transferring mental information into electrical information that can communicate with computers. We do this now with artificial arms. You can actually attach a device and learn to move a third arm using your brain. It will send that in. Literally, you just learn to do it. Chimps have learned to do it. And, that third arm can also replace a, say, missing arm. Cool that. It's really cool tech. But the stone petrification thing, you can clearly think while you are still petrified. That is something that you're able to do. So there is a strong theoretic possibility that Senku's father went up to the moon, established this little moon base, hooked himself up to a machine that allowed him to mentally just use his mind to mentally manipulate everything on the base that he needed, and it includes like a radio broadcasting set, whatever stuff he needed, whatever stuff he felt he needed, and then petrified himself on the moon while hooked up to that machine. And now his body is just perfectly preserved in the statue while his mind is still operating the device. So the series has actually set this up perfectly. Like there is like a logical way that this could work. So I am actually pretty confident about this. And I've partially been wanting to do this video so that I could get this prediction out before the big reveal, probably this week, because they just landed on the moon on the last chapter. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that I got this one out before Sunday when the next chapter comes. Wait, is it Breakneck this week? It might be Break this week. No. This isn't One Piece. The author doesn't need breaks. He is less important. Because that's how that works. It hurts to say that because like it's painful but true. Like that is the painful truth of the situation, is that like this guy is it's no break. There's no break. Yeah, it'll come this Sunday. This Sunday will be it. Get excited. Like I wanted to get this out before that reveal because I really think this is I think this is what we're facing. It's pretty clear to me. It's an exciting and fun story. It's good. I highly recommend it. I very, very much think that Dr. Stone is a fun story. It's a fun world. The petrification devices are really cool. I've honestly, like, as I've been reading it, I've been like, can we develop this? Is this like tech that we're working on? Can we make this real? Because like the petrification, and this is one of those like core themes of the story, is like, science can be used for really good and really bad things. It depends on how you use it. And these petrification devices are no different. The moment that they got their hands on one, they immediately started to use it as a medical tool. Because like, if a person gets petrified, it actually fixes up, like it turns their entire body to stone, like inside and out. Like it's a full petrification. And when nitral's added, it undoes that and restores the innards to basically perfect condition, basically to genetic perfect condition. So things like the old man's arthritis vanished after he got petrified and restored once, and he was in much better health because the entire innards of his body had been rejuvenated. And on top of that, as long as the statues aren't broken and the edges weathered away, they can be restored. And which means that if you could in theory use this for perpetual life, or at least to preserve people until such a point that you can cure whatever the unpetrifying them might not cure, like say old age. So that is friggin' like I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, I love my grandmother to death, but like if I had one of those devices, I'd find a safe place to put her, petrify her, leave her there until we could cure the old age thing, and just because like she could go to a long sleep, just stay there, stay safe, long sleep. Come by, maybe depetrify her every once in a while just to prevent any weathering, cracking, breaking, whatever, and then like just a quick little revive, and then back into the long sleep. Because like we're so close to solving the old age problem, and I mean like we're getting to the point where we're getting synthetic flesh. Like synthetic flesh is on the horizon, and that's that would be a big step towards fixing the old age problem. Same with cloning young organs. We're getting successful cloned organ transplants now. Like that's big. That's really big. This is really, really big. Not needing to have donors lined up especially for elderly people, that is enormous. So that they can get fully healthy organs put into their body without costing another person a heart. Those are big. Like we're getting very, very close to being able to kind of piecemeal replace the body parts for elderly people, which isn't a perfect solution yet, but like will definitely get them closer to some of these more biological solutions that are also coming down the pipe. Things that target the DNA and the genetics that help rejuvenate and restore youth. That are a bit further off, but still coming. Like there's very positive studies showing some of the stuff works quite well, and it's going through the testing process and making sure that the test results are correct. But yeah, so like I would totally 100%, especially with COVID around, I'd be like, let's she doesn't need to see the next 5 to 10 years of human history, because like the next 5 to 10 years are gonna be really shitty. Like really, everyone be ready. It's gonna get really shitty really fast here. So like I'm sitting here, I'm like, she really doesn't need to see that. That'd probably break her heart. This is safe and reversible, and yeah, no. This is put her. Can I get one of those petrification devices? And just put her in a lockbox as a petrified statue where she can stay safe. Bury the lockbox to make sure that like no nuclear blasts destroy it or anything like that. I mean, like, I do not have a high opinion of where the world is going in the next 5 to 10 years. I just don't. It's hard to be a rational person who has seen history and not have a very low opinion of what's coming, of our odds in the upcoming problems, It's very, very hard. So yeah, no, that it is a good series. I enjoy it. I wish we had petrification tech. Like that is like at the top of things that I wish we had at the moment. And so that's going to actually end it up for me. I'm only stalling because my body is actively trying to pass out. I notice that Granny is ready to go. The phone has stopped blinking red, telling me that the phone is off the hook and she's talking to Lydia. She's put the phone down. That means she's attempting to get up. It takes her a little while to get up from her position. And my body's response to that is, I've been working since noon today. It's been 10 hours. I don't want to get up. Just let me sleep. I'm going to go ahead and just sleep right here. I'm just going to fall asleep. Because like I got up, I got myself washed and cleaned off, and then I got her up and I got her washed and I got her cleaned up and prepared, and I sat her down for some food, and then I sat for like 30 minutes to an hour, and she got up came in here and demanded my attention, and then so I had to help take her back and then give her pills, as well as confirm for her that the TV was correct. And then I had to leave, go shopping, get food, eat it in my car, and then come home, bring all of the groceries up, put them all away, and then I sat down for about 30 minutes. I watched Murphy Namor's video that she posted today, and then on Heroes, and that was actually really good little piece on writing Heroes. And then I started cutting up all of the food that I needed to cut up for dinner tonight and started cooking dinner. And I was still doing that by about 8 o'clock. I'm so tired. My whole body hurts. I just want to pass out. I don't want to hit the button and get up and go help her, because that's what's going to have to happen the moment I hit the button and turn the stream off, so I've got to get up. I don't want to. I'm tired. I'm really tired. I'm just really, really fucking tired. I'm going to get up and fall right over onto my face. That's what's going to happen. Alright. I got to get going and get up. Bye-bye.